So for some of you who are new to Ruby Connection, it's Westpac's online community for women, the first of its kind to be set up by an Australian bank. It's a central platform where like-minded women can come together and forge real connections, become more financially confident and empowered by what they can achieve for their futures. We are particularly excited today about this session with Jody, Katie and Meggie, and I know that there will be many takeaways for all of us that we can continue to share amongst our networks, friends and women alike to help us all strive for gender equity and boosting the financial confidence of all women. Thank you, enjoy, and over to you, Meggie.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine. I really appreciate that. And we are so grateful to Ruby Connection from Westpac for supporting these monthly conversations, bringing all these fabulous women together and a few blokes as well. Welcome to you from right around Australia to have really fascinating conversations about finance, money, and your business. And today we're going to be chatting about Recruitment 101. Now, PepTalkher is a small business that I run, and recruiting, honestly, it keeps me up at night. So I'm excited to learn some tips today. We have the fabulous Katie joining us from LinkedIn today. Katie, we are so delighted to have you here. You're going to give us some tips for those who are recruiting, like I am, and those who are job hunting as well. Do you want to give us the quick cliff notes of your career to date?
Oh, thank you, Meggie. Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Katie Clinch. I work at LinkedIn and I'm based out of Sydney, Australia, originally from London, if you can hear it from the accent. For me, I've been at LinkedIn for coming up to 6 years, and I'm fortunate enough to manage a team of customer success managers where we empower our customers to see success with our talent solutions products. So this is why I'm here, because I'm about all things talent, whether it be recruiting, whether it be you putting your best self first and forward for your own branding for a new job. So I'm really excited to be here and to see some familiar names actually, and yeah, just to get stuck in. So thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. And LinkedIn has been hugely successful for me when I was hiring initially. Kim from my team, who's on the call today, we met through LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure. So there you go. Jody, you are a recruiter yourself. We would love to sort of get the cliff notes again on your career before we jump into the tips that everyone on the call today can apply.
Yes, so I am a very passionate recruiter. I could speak for hours on this subject. I've been in recruitment for coming up 30 years, which makes me feel really old, but the fundamentals are still the same. I think it's always daunting for businesses to recruit, and I think it's always daunting for people to actually, it's one of the most stressful things you can do is look for a job. I have a business called Itch. We specialise in 2 different areas, sort of admin, and for the purpose of today, up to that sort of executive level. And on the other side, I have another business that focuses on skilled trades and crewing drilling rigs. So for the purpose of today, I'll speak on the admin side. But as I said, really passionate. I know that the expense, the sleepless nights that it can cause companies and business owners and line managers to make the wrong recruiting decisions. And I know what it's like to actually have to look for a job and not find a job, and find yourself in a job that maybe you don't like. So that's what I think about all things recruiting. It's a labyrinth, it's a minefield, and quite complex and stressful.
Right. Life's too short to do a job that you don't like, right, Jody?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Now, listen, if you are searching for a job today, we would love to help support you. We've popped a question in the chat to tell us where you are based today. Hello to our friends in Hobart. Love that place. If there weren't so many restrictions, I would have gone down for a visit while I was back from New York City. But pop in the chat where you're joining us from today. We would love to hear from you. But there's going to be some polls going on through the Zoom as well. We'd love you to answer those so we can get a sense of where everyone's at their career stage right now. But if you yourself are job hunting right now, pop your name, your LinkedIn link, if you like, and the sort of role that you're looking for in the chat, because, you know, we've got more than 100 people joining us today. So you just never know who on this call may be able to help support you. So I want to start with LinkedIn, because I think if you're like me and you're a small business and you're looking to hire people, and equally, if you're looking for a job right now, LinkedIn really seems to be the place to go. Katie, let's put our hat on now for everyone who's on the call today. What's like the top 1 or 2 things people can do today to give their LinkedIn profile like a spruce up so that they're going to put their best foot forward to recruiters and things like that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'm going to try refrain from giving you 50 tips and, like you said, just give you a couple. The one thing that you can do today is just connect. with people on LinkedIn that are relevant to you. I, of course, want to say update your profile picture and pop your experience in there, but being connected to people that are relevant for you in your industry is the first part. And I know we'll talk on more on how you can build your brand and what you can be doing on LinkedIn, but connect with people on this call. There's 77 of us. We're all like-minded women, and it could be a great opportunity to build our networks there. So connection, and also having a profile picture on show. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a professional photo shoot. I'm not saying it's going to be a selfie or you at the races back 2 years ago, but something that represents you today.
Yeah, I love that. That's so important. And one thing that's interesting, and Jodie, I don't know if you find this as well as a recruiter, like having a big presence on LinkedIn is really valuable, right? So I know even when I shared we were hiring recently, we're actually hiring now. So DM me if you're looking for a job. But we were hiring and I posted something on LinkedIn. And I've got, quite a few thousand followers. And so all of their followers saw it as well. And it kind of just had this cascading effect as well. From a recruiter's perspective, when you're hunting for people, how important is having like a really up-to-date LinkedIn profile from your perspective?
Oh, look, it's incredibly important. We, as well as LinkedIn and social media, the first thing people are doing is when you get an application, you look at the resume and you marry it up with LinkedIn. So it has to reflect. And it's really interesting to see the discrepancies between what someone says in their resume and their online resume. I think if you are, in the job market or you are working anywhere, you must have a LinkedIn profile, even if it's, a school leaver, but it must align. Your social media is really, really important. People that's how you judge now. People are looking at your social media, your profile pictures, how you present yourself, if you've got privacy, the things you like, the things you follow, the comments you make. Unfortunately, things are scrutinised. So you do also have to be quite careful with what you post, and if it's going to benefit you from someone not knowing you. So opinions actually should also be kept in check as well. I don't know if you agree, Katie, but that's my tip.
No, Jodie, I plus one to that. And I actually, if okay, I'd love to share a story. So very much related to that. When I was looking for a new role, my next play, I was looking at LinkedIn, and I knew that LinkedIn was a great company, but manager and hiring manager was very important to me. And so I came across my hiring manager, the person who would be managing me. And I remember looking at her profile, and she shared a long form post about being a mum, and how it's such a juggle for her, and how it's made her more compassionate, and, making her aware that you can't just do a 9-to-5 job. And I was like, I want to work for her. And I remember seeing that the updates and the comments that she had written on LinkedIn, and it made me see that, yes, she's active on LinkedIn, of course, but the type of person that she was. So that's also, Jodie, as you said, it goes the other way around when you're looking at, that candidate, what are they doing? This is how they're communicating. So it definitely goes both ways.
And I think, Katie, you make a really valid point there, because on the flip side, as a business, I think it's really important for us to keep in check how we come across in the marketplace, because people will look at us and they'll scrutinise again how we position ourselves. Are we a company that you want to work for? Are our managers putting their best foot forward? If there's been sort of negative feedback, how are we actually addressing that? Are we actually, out there and proud about who we are and where we're coming from, and how we position ourselves in the marketplace? I think employer branding and business branding is really, really important. The wins you've had, any issues in the news, how the market sees you. Have you had redundancies in the past? How are you addressing those? How are you actually saying this has happened in the past, this is happening in the future, this is what we're like to work for? So incredibly important both ways.
And one thing I'd like to challenge everyone to do today, so whether you're on the call, whether you're recruiting like we are at PepTalkher, or whether you're on the job hunt, bring up a browser, make it a private tab. So whether you use Chrome or Safari, I want you to bring up a browser now, and I just want you to Google your name. Just Google your name and just see what comes up, because you might be pleasantly surprised, I hope. And sometimes you're like, oh my goodness, what do you mean that Pinterest board about my home gym comes up? Or what do you mean like the Pinterest board about my Christmas dinner is the first thing that comes up? So just have a look at that, because put yourself in the perspective of like a future staff member who might want to join your team, or a future boss, like the first thing they're going to do is Google you, right? Like it's 2021, it's what we do. So Google yourself, because when you're clear on how you're perceived, it's really helpful. I had someone, we run a career level up course, and one of the women in the course Googled herself, and she's a big Irish dancer. And the first thing that came up of her was one of her Pinterest boards about Irish dancing. She didn't realize that she had it public, and so she made it private. So now the first thing that comes up is her LinkedIn and the page to her on her law firm's website. So it's just like small tweaks like that, but it can make a difference in the way that you're perceived. So I think that that's really, really important. Katie, one of the things that we were chatting about before today's session started was that one of the best things that both recruiters, companies who are recruiting and people looking for a job can do is have a really big network on LinkedIn. Do you have any advice for people who are wanting to reach out to individuals who have a skill set that they want, or who want to reach out to people who have a job that they're aspirational for in the future?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, and it might sound like a cliche, but being your authentic self is just so important in this virtual world that we are living in. And so I don't know about everyone on the line, but if I go to my LinkedIn, I've got a lot of connection requests. And typically no one writes a message when they're trying to connect with you. And if I'm welcoming you into my world, into my network, who are you? Why do you want to connect? Of course, anyone on the line, let's connect. We've been on this call together. So I would say if you're going to connect with someone, tell them why. I want to connect with you. We have similar skill sets. It'd be great to be a part of each other's network. Or if you're interested and you're applying for this role, tell them why, to start that conversation. So it's really having it as a conversation starter. And again, like I said, making sure it's relevant. Your network is relevant. So you don't want to have a network of 2,000 people that are all in a different country, that work in a different industry to you, because when you post or when you look at the content, it's not going to be relevant. So I'd say that making sure the network is relevant, because that's also going to ensure that your newsfeed is relevant. Because I do hear people say to me, oh, my network is rubbish, or someone's posted an equation or a picture of a cat. And I will say, well, that is your network. That is who you are connected to. So make sure that it is relevant. And then if it is relevant and people are posting crap on LinkedIn, then maybe reach out to the network.
Well, and that's the other challenge that I want to give everyone today is I'd love everyone to post something on LinkedIn today, because, the best way to put it out there if you're job hunting or to start to build your personal brand, or if you're trying to build a company and you want to build a great team, for better or worse, you need to be putting yourself out there. You need to be building that brand. And it can be scary. I'd love to hear from you in the comments if that's something that sort of makes you feel a bit anxious or nervous. But I will say that it does pay off, in a really big way. So I'd love to encourage people to post on LinkedIn. Something really easy that you can do is if there's an article related to your industry or a journal piece that you've read or something in the news. For example, I was really interested that Stacey Abrams was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. That was something that I posted about yesterday. Side note, there's only 10% of women have ever won the Nobel Peace Prizes. That's a bit shocking, but that's a story for another day. But interesting things like that you see are really great to share, right? And add that value to your network. So love for you all to do that. And by all means, share the link here or DM to me afterwards. And love to take a look at that as well. Katie, one of the things you also said that's really helpful is to tag people. So when you're posting on LinkedIn, to actually at them, so that you get that bigger reach as well.
Definitely. Yeah. Tagging someone that is relevant in the post itself or in the comments. So something I've seen work really well is if I post in this update and then I'm going to post in the comments, hey, Jodie, we spoke about this last week. Check out this article. And so that's going to then build that conversation. And then what that's going to do, similar to what you mentioned before, it's going to create that ripple effect. So people that you're connected to will see that you have commented, Jodie, and then your network would see my post and then vice versa. So that's how we can broaden our reach.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, go ahead, Jodie.
So just to go back to being your authentic self and maybe some clarification around that, Katie, you made a really good point. You have to be yourself and you don't want to assume someone else's persona. If they don't like you for who you are, you don't want to work for that business. But there are going to be some things that can be tweaked. So the message I think that we're sending as well is being your authentic self doesn't mean, it means that you have to be true to yourself, but please don't be someone else because how you present as well, and then how you start a job and how you continue your first few weeks, they're kind of going, well, this is really interesting. That's not how they presented themselves on social media, or that's not how they presented themselves on LinkedIn. So it is a really fine line.
Absolutely. And we've had some questions from people in the chat about personal branding. We're going to do an entire session purely on your personal brand. So thank you for sending those questions through. If you have questions specifically today about recruiters or indeed recruiting for your business, please DM them to me or pop them in the chat, and we'll make sure that we get to those today. Jodie, I have a question for you. If someone is job hunting, they're looking for a specific role, how do they reach out to a recruiter? Like, how can they get recruiters' attention?
Well, it's that itself is $1 million question. Unfortunately, there are some that ruin our industry in a way, because they see people as a big sort of fat dollar sign, and unless they can actually place them somewhere, they don't offer their years of experience on what it's actually like to be hunting for a job and have that sort of sympathetic approach. Obviously, there is a way that you can look on Seek. All recruiters advertise. It's one of the ways they actually find people and put the opportunities out there. But there are also specialist recruiters. So if you are looking for a specific job in a specific industry, there are people who silo themselves into those specialty areas. Without sort of naming any names, I think the larger organisations can sometimes be sort of high volume, sort of churn and burn. Unless they've got a job, they're not really interested. It's sort of finding one who sort of speaks to you and aligns with I suppose, the objective that you're wanting. Some people just want to speak to a recruiter, look at a job, get interviewed, be placed in the client position, and everyone lives happily ever after. But I think there are some candidates that need their hands held and want some advice and want someone to help them in this incredibly stressful time. So, you can look at the ones that your friends have dealt with. Ask people who have other business owners, what their experience has been like. A referral is also always, completely fabulous. But it's daunting, really, really daunting. Again, go back to LinkedIn and social media. See how they're presenting themselves as well.
Yeah, it is so important. We've had some great advice in the chat. Thank you to Kate Crouch, who's just put some feedback in that you can actually edit how your LinkedIn link looks like. So, sometimes it'll be like linkedin.com/84765. Mine is actually linkedin.com/IN/Meggie Palmer. And I've just popped the link in the chat. If you click on that, it'll walk you through the steps, how you can personalize your LinkedIn URL, which is just really great if you don't want to have to always Google it, copy and paste it into your emails that you're sending to recruiters and things like that. It's just easier, looks a little more professional, just positions you as someone who's really on top of things. So by all means, go ahead and do that. It's a really great tip. Really appreciate Kate sharing that today. So interesting question that we've had come through here from a couple of people. Jodie, love your perspective on this as well. There are statistics that tell us that women won't apply for a job until we feel 100% ready, right? We'll wait till we're sort of 99, 100% ready. Whereas we know from studies that men are more likely to apply, even if they only reach sort of 5, 6, 7 out of 10 of the criteria. And so it's this situation where, women aren't necessarily putting themselves forward for as many of those senior positions. Do you have any advice for women who are sort of feeling, should I apply for that next gig?
Absolutely. And I think, so we're talking, right, about how, we present ourselves as candidates. Put yourself on the other side. I'm there. I need someone for my business or for one of my clients. How do I actually put an ad together or put it out there to the market of what I'm looking for, and people interpret it in the right way? So it does actually work both ways. There are times where we know the sort of person we're looking for, but if we put it out completely broadly and from the perspective that we know it is, we might have thousands of applications and we might not actually be able to fine-tune it. I scream for people to call me. Less than 6% of candidates actually pick up the phone. So pick up the phone and say, look, this is what you've advertised for. Can you tell me the 3 things that are going to stand out and potentially give me the opportunity of an interview? And you'll find that in that engagement that you might get little tips where they sort of say, look, to be really honest with you, I know that we've said that we want this skill set, but, you know, we really ideally would love someone with this, this, and this. And all of a sudden you're having an engagement, and it sort of puts you ahead of the rest. So if you don't want to apply for the role because it is sending a few sheets of paper and you don't want to be judged on those, pick up the phone. And that would be something, because, you know, even if you don't have all of the skills, at least you're engaging. Now, if the person on the other end of the phone doesn't want to answer your questions, chances are you don't want to work for them anyway. So my advice, pick up the phone, ask the question, never assume.
And it's also a great way to stand out, isn't it? Because then the recruiter has you front of mind, you've got extra intel that you can tweak your cover letter. That's so important, isn't it? I love that advice.
And I think also, Meggie, on that point, I think there are some times when you speak to recruiters and you might not be right for that role, but then they might have something that comes up 2 days later. They pick up the phone to you and go, hey, look, I know you were looking for this, you were talking about this. You know, do you want to have a chat about this role? So all of a sudden, out of sometimes up to 1,200 applications, that less than 6% of people who pick up the phone are going to stand out.
Yeah, and it's someone's just said in the chat, it's so simple, but it makes sense. And it comes back to that whole thing, if people want to do business who they like, with people that they like, right? Yeah. So if you can form that connection, have a bit of banter on the phone, all of a sudden the sentiment towards your application has gone from here to here, you know?
And I think it's interesting because I think do pick up the phone, but make it short and concise. Appreciate the person's day. So, look, I know that you're probably quite busy at the moment. I've seen the ad. I'd really like to apply, but I just want to ask you 2 questions and keep it to 2. Ideally, what are you looking for? What is going to stand out in my application? And how am I best to stand out from the crowd? But on the flip side, you can actually approach companies direct and speak to the hiring manager. And I'm always a bit cheeky, and I kind of say to candidates at times, if you want to get into that particular company, pick up the phone and say, look, I've followed your business. I'm passionate about your business. Could I buy you a coffee or can I speak to you over the phone and just ask you, you know, how you got into the business? The advice that you'd give me about applying for a role within your organisation. If you keep it short and concise, people actually want to help if they're asked for help, if that makes sense.
And if it's a really clear and specific ask, so if they say, hey, Jody, I'm looking for a role in admin, ideally in the Sydney area, love to know if you've got anything. And you can say, hey, listen, I don't, but let's stay in touch. Fine, let's move on. Just, you know, we don't have to do, you know, reams and reams of pages of emails or anything. It can be simple, can't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Katie, I mean, we've got quite a few business owners on the call who are recruiting. We've used, like a link on our website in the past to capture applicants, and then we've promoted it, you know, through LinkedIn with a link to that. For people who are looking to recruit right now, like, do they have to be spending a lot of money, or there's, you know, like just LinkedIn itself is a great way to start to amplify if they're hiring, right?
Yeah, definitely. So there's so much goodness that you can do, of course, for free on LinkedIn. And there are, of course, options for like paid jobs. But I wanted to spend the time to just talk about what you can be doing within your network. Can I just say one do not do, because no one really kind of works to it, is if you've got a job and you post it and say it is urgent job, you know, please apply now. It is only urgent for you. It is not urgent for other people. So I would say that when you're posting a job, let's just say you're doing an update, you're posting a link from your website, it's just share a bit of a story. Similar to what Jody said, what is the type of person you're looking for? Get specific. And I think we're typically looking for people that are, in the past, we've typically looked for people that are a cultural fit. I'd encourage you to switch that and think about someone that will be a cultural ad. So making sure that if you're posting on LinkedIn, it's not just text, pop an image in there. Do you have a picture of you and your team when you were able to be together and not socially distance? Post that in there. Again, tag some others to broaden that reach of that update. So that's something that you can be doing. Another thing you can do is on your LinkedIn profile, you're able to update your profile picture to say hiring. Now, what that does is that allows your network to know that you are hiring. You can also do that if you're a job seeker and you are open to looking for a new role and you're okay with your network seeing it. You can also update your image to say open to work. So that's another way to engage with your network and share that you're hiring or you're also open to work.
Yeah, that's so valuable, because I think a lot of people have probably seen people with the open to work, but I actually didn't know that I could put hiring on my LinkedIn. So there you go. I'm going to get off this call and do that, Katie. I've learned something from you. Multiple things. That's awesome. Jody, a couple of small business owners are messaging me on the chat privately saying, like, how do you know when you found the right person? Like, I love Katie's point about the cultural ad, but it's so hard to know. Like, how do you know when you found the one in terms of hiring?
Well, I think there's a certain checklist that you need to actually undertake before you actually start the recruitment process. And the first one is an updated and relevant job description, because that sort of outlines exactly the sort of person that you're looking for from a skills perspective. I think it's having a true appreciation of what the business needs and what your team is the sort of person that's going to fit into your team, what your visions, missions, values, do the people align with that? But I think getting the right person is sort of 50% of the way. And I think people, it's no different to a relationship, I think. You know, we come into the market and people say, right, we need someone within a month. But would we necessarily get married to a husband that we'd only known for a month? And yet we're going to spend more time with these people than we do in our relationships. So the first thing, there needs to be that time. Have the JD, have the expectations, and then kind of work out that when the person comes on board, how am I onboarding them? How are they responding in those first sort of 90 days? It's not until 6 months down the track that you'll really know if you've got the right person or not, unless you've made a complete cluster out of recruiting and you just know from that first week that it's just not going to work. But I do think that expectations are really important. And as long as you have a job description where you can see if they're actually meeting the requirements, exceeding the requirements, or need more training, it really is going to be 6 months until you work out if they're right for the job or not.
Yeah, and I actually, to your point, Jodie, I heard someone say once, he said, I've been interviewing this candidate and they're really looking like a great fit. I've actually been interviewing them for 3 years and they have no idea that there's an interview going on. And I think the point is that, you know, like when you meet people, every interaction really potentially is like a job interview, right? Because if you meet someone or you interact with the client, you're like, gee, they're good. Love them to join my sales team. You know, like it's a way, every interaction that you have with people is I guess, an amplification of your personal brand and how others perceive you to potentially offer you jobs down the track.
And I think there needs to be a robust interview process as well. I think there should be a first interview which determines if they have the actual skills to deliver what needs to be delivered in that role. The second interview, I think, should be very much around their ability, you know, do you connect on a personal level? Do you connect on that you know, visions and values? And then I think the third meeting, and we do it at each, is all the team come together. And then there is discussion on if that person, you know, feels good for the team, and it might be over, you know, drinks on a Friday or a morning tea on a, you know, another day. But an interview process shouldn't be walk in 20 minutes later, yeah, great, they seem good for the job. It's just not, it's not right for the business. It's not right for your team, and certainly not right for your sleep if you get it wrong.
Absolutely. And just a couple of people who are looking for jobs, how do they find niche recruiters? Like, how do you know which recruiters are in your niche? Is it literally LinkedIn? Is that the best way?
Well, sorry, Katie, not to take away from LinkedIn on this one, but, you know, the best way to go about it is to actually look at some of the job boards. So you'll find that if you are an accountant, as an example, you're looking for an accounting role. Well, who has accounting roles? Who's advertising for the most accounting roles? How are they writing their ads? Do they seem to know a lot about their clients? Are they just sort of generic ads for an accountant, or are they talking about the culture of their businesses? The way they write their ads and the way they express themselves will sort of reflect on how vested they are in the success of the clients they're recruiting for. And that goes across all different categories. But, you know, certainly LinkedIn will in their bios and in a recruiter's history, it will spell out what their specialties are. So they can work hand in hand.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, those of you who've joined these lunch and learns before know that I run a tight ship and we always finish on time, but I've got so many questions coming through. So I'm going to keep going for another 5 minutes if our panelists are okay with that. Thank you to everyone messaging me. If you've got to drop off, that's very kind of you. Thanks for joining. We've got a survey in the chat. We'd love to know your thoughts, ideas for future sessions as well. So let's carry on, because we've just got so many questions coming through here privately. One question in particular that has come through a couple of times is, like, what is your advice? And Katie, this might be a good one for you. If there's a career path that you're interested in or a role that you'd love to aspire to, how do you pair up with mentors or find sponsors who can help guide you in that career journey?
Yeah, I think it's having just the conversations with people that are in that role already. So for me, I was looking to move out of sales, the quota carrying role, and I wanted more of an account management, customer success type of role. So I reached out to people that were customer success and I said, hey, what is your role all about? What is it that you do? It gave me a sense of that. Same for me as I moved into leadership, I thought the same, and let's do a couple of shadowing of one-on-ones or catch-up meetings that these managers are having. So you can leverage LinkedIn, you can leverage people in your business, your friends, whoever it may be, just to ask the questions about what their day in their role looks like. I think it's a great way to get a taster. It's almost taken us back to when we were at school and we did a bit of work experience to get a taster. Do it again, jump on the line with someone and just ask the questions.
Absolutely. And I think, Jodie, you raised this earlier, you know, like, people like to help. You know, if they can, people like to help. And sometimes they're too busy and they're going to ignore you. And you know what? That's okay. Because I'm going to put out a prediction. If you message 5 people on LinkedIn today, I will guarantee within a week, one of them will write back to you. Like, definitely, you're not going to hear from some of them. People are busy. That's cool. But it's pretty unlikely to me that none of them would write back to you. Like, generally, people are just wanting to be generous and help others because they've been there too, right? So I do think that, you know, if you're bold and if you put yourself out there, you'd be surprised at some of the wonderful help and support you'd get back. Jodie, I can see you nodding away.
Yeah, going to say something, but I think also you need to make it easy for people to help you out. And another way that I say to people, you know, you've got your friends and family network as well. And people often say, oh, I'll just shoot out an email or I'll just put something out to link on Messenger, on LinkedIn or, you know, or something like that. I kind of say, look, be specific. Let them actually be able to help you by saying, this is what I'm trying to achieve. This is what I'm looking for. These are the hours or the days that I'm looking for. This is, you know, I'd ideally love these. This is my strength. These are my weaknesses. It should be something which you can pass on to people or give a call out and say, if you were me and here are my details, what would you recommend for me? Or can you pass these details onto your friendship network? And you'd be surprised that you just get one person from those five connections that will say, oh, I was speaking to someone the other day. They were looking for someone like that, or I might forward it on to that person because they always know what's going on. So it's really important that when you reach out, you actually make it meaningful. It's not just, I'm looking for a job.
And I think that's a good point, Jodie, because it's also about relationships, right? Like, your career is really, you know, a 30, 40-year trajectory of relationships, of people you work with, people who hire you, people who promote you. And so I always like this framework of give, get. So instead of just reaching out to someone straight away and saying, can you help me with my career? It's nice to, like, follow them on LinkedIn, start liking their stuff, start commenting, you know, like things like that. Just like, how can you add value? And you might think, well, I can't add value to a senior executive, but think creatively, even just liking their post, you know, even just following them or subscribing to their newsletter. Small little things like that, all of a sudden it starts to create a connection. So when you do need advice or support, it's not coming from a base of zero. You sort of already started to form that relationship. And that's why I think, you know, there's other platforms too, but particularly LinkedIn, it's just so easy, you know, to just like and comment and straight away see what are your colleagues doing, who's changed jobs, can you congratulate a former mentor for a new role or a not-for-profit charity they're involved with, just little things like that. And Katie, is that essentially what LinkedIn's meant to work like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about connecting people. We try to do the quick solutions where you get a notification to say, oh, Meggie has a new job. Easy to congratulate. It's so easy to like. It's sometimes harder to comment, but the comments make more of the impact.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Meggie, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. Sorry. That's like the phrase of 2020 and 2021, isn't it? So I know I've gone over time, which is very naughty of me. We've got one more question, but in the meantime, make sure that you follow Jodie and Katie on LinkedIn. They've got so much wisdom to share, and they've generously offered, if you want to reach out to them on LinkedIn, they're happy for you to do that, which is just amazing. Thank you. Likewise, I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. A really important question that I wanted to save to the end, and it's around bias, particularly age bias. Now, Gender bias is something that, my entire business is based on that at PepTalkher. But specifically for this conversation, I'd love to touch on age bias, Jodie. Like, how can people who are experienced in their career, who are worried about being discriminated against because of their age, and indeed maybe they're early in their career. I've had clients who've been early and very successful and they get discriminated against because they're too young. And we hear the same thing for people who are more mature in their career. Do you have any advice for people who are worried about that?
Look, I think it comes down again to the businesses you're approaching and the value they put on your experience or lack of experience. I mean, we're experiencing a skill shortage at the moment is because in the past we haven't actually put time and effort into training our emerging workforce. We're in a terrible skill shortage, and yet there seems to be a move or an opinion that, there is this ageism. It's the biggest talk at the moment. I think it's even, overcome other isms that we talk about. But I think it's the way in which you approach something. You know what? We all get rejected a lot, whether it be me contacting a client, whether us. Life is at times full of rejections, and I think what happens is people as they get further along in their career do become self-conscious and do become sensitive and are concerned about their relevance, and that's a really horrible spot to be. So they might put out 10 applications, not be successful for a role, and then think that that's the reason why, and it is a numbers game. On the flip side, let me give you an example. We've all seen the front of a paper and someone said, I've applied for 600 jobs. Well, there aren't 600 jobs that are going to be relevant to your experience, so you have to fine-tune what you're looking for. But on the flip side, you actually also have to open yourself up to say, well, what can I do? What is my background? So if my background is being an executive assistant, but I've decided later on in my career that I want to switch careers, it's not going to yield a good result. So you need to look at what your skills are, what your strengths are, what you can offer a business, and stick to your lane. But remember that just because you're getting a rejection doesn't necessarily relate back to your age. And I think a lot of people sort of feel that way. And I get it, I do. It's about being relevant and being aware of that later part of your career. I can understand it. It's a concern on so many people's minds. It's awful.
It is awful.
That's the only advice I can give.
But I like your advice of reframing it to say, well, it's often not you, it's them, right? When you get a rejection. So trying to stay that positive mindset. It sounds woo-woo, which isn't really my jam, but I do think it's actually really important when you're job hunting because it's tough, right?
And I get clients that say, and look, they say, look, we'd actually prefer someone with a lot more experience. We don't have the time to put into someone who is emerging. We need someone reliable. But the challenge is as well, we're dealing with Fair Work, and I'm going to be a bit contentious here. We can't say senior. We can't specify an age. So in all of those jobs that are on Seek, how do you actually say we're going to preference a mature person? Likewise, how are we going to preference a junior person? It's a labyrinth. It's a minefield. So interesting.
Well, and
that's a whole nother topic.
It is a whole nother topic, but I think it relates back to something we've talked about, which is it's important to be niche and clear on what you do want and the sort of companies you will and won't work for, and then don't apply for 600, apply for 60, and maybe spend that time building relationships with some of those people or starting to follow them on LinkedIn or trying to do some informational interviews, right? Reaching out to them on LinkedIn saying, hey, I'm applying for a role in your team. Would you be open to a call before I put in my application? They might say no. They might say yes. You just never know.
I will also say that I think sometimes job hunting, particularly if you are unemployed or in between jobs, should be approached like a full-time role. So you get up in the morning, you have a look at the new jobs that are in, set up your alerts, write cover letters, and not 2 pages, like short, sharp, cover letters that are addressed to the person, not the hiring manager or sir or madam. You can tweak your resume, not that you don't want to lie, but you can shuffle things in order of relevance and that sort of thing. So you can actually put a lot of time into an application that could also make you stand out as well, irrelevant to your age.
Yeah, great point. Well, listen, I've been very naughty and I've gone over time, which I've never done before, but we just had so many questions coming in. So thank you to everyone. Again, if you are job hunting, pop it in the chat, send me a DM. If there's someone that we know that's searching, like, more than happy to connect you. As I said, Jody and Katie both kindly offered to connect with you all on LinkedIn, so take them up on that offer. You never know who in their job network, may be hiring, maybe looking for people. You just never know. Huge thank you to Ruby Connection from Westpac and their commitment to supporting women in business, women finding financial freedom and taking control of their financial future. We really appreciate your support, and thank you for supporting PepTalkher as well. We really appreciate it. If you are job hunting, we recommend that you download the PepTalkher app, and it will help you track your successes so that when you're applying for a job or you need that cover letter, you've got data points and examples there that you can speak to, which hopefully will help as well. Katie and Jody, thank you. This has been a treat. Any final words for our attendees today?
I just wanted to say thank you, and I want to be on the next session, so I want to be listening in, so send me those invites.
And you know what? Just remember how important a job is. And whilst it might not be happening today, it will happen, and it will be worth the wait, I can guarantee you.
Yes, that alignment is so key to finding a job that you just are delighted to get up and go to every day. A quick plug for another female-founded business, Work 180. Gemma Lloyd and Valeria are two amazing female CEOs. It is a website. They've got jobs on there where the companies have to have certain policies in place. They have to have parental leave and all sorts of different great policies. So that's a way, if you're sort of looking to sort of narrow down the sorts of companies where you feel like there's a values fit, that might be an interesting resource for some of you as well. But I'm excited to connect with everyone on LinkedIn. Again, huge thank you to Westpac. Massive thank you to Christina Kim from Westpac and Kira McClelland, who are both on the call today. We will see you next month, and I hope that you have a fabulous weekend. Thanks, everyone.